Surprise! Sorry, hair and makeup didn't quite get finished before the show started. This is hair. I'm not sure about makeup. Here's some Q-tips. That might count. Good morning, Carol. I hope you're having, or not good morning, Carol. Good evening, Carol. I hope you're having a good day. Hope you've had a good day. Hey, Doug, welcome in. Yeah, that's not too bad. Hey, Mike. If you get a chance, Mike, pass me a donut. I got the coffee, but I didn't grab any donuts because I thought you were bringing them. Oops. We'll see if a couple more people show up, and I'll tell the news of the household, so to speak. Well, what do they call that? Housekeeping. Housekeeping. A little bit of housekeeping before we start. That's how I think that's right. Man, can you guys hear me okay? Do I need to move my mic? And here's Mr. Tedward. You want to come say hi? Carol's here. You want to say hi to Miss Carol? Huh? You gonna say hi to Miss Carol? Oh, he sees something outside. It might be a minute. Squirrel? Oh, yep, squirrel. There he went, bud. You have to get down and look. Up there he is again. Off he went. Carol said, hi, Super Teddy. He said, hi. You still not going to come around here? He's waking up. He's working on it. So here I am. Da, da, da. The Super Ted. How you been, buddy? Did you have a good nap? Mm-hmm. You weren't having any bad dreams or anything, because I would have heard that. That's probably his appearance for the evening. He still seemed a bit sleepy. But he got up and said hi, so I got to give him some. I'll have to give him some extra snacks later. Let my coffee get look. I had two settings on my coffee warmer, low and high. I had that on low, and it's not. I like it a little hotter. Oops. Hey, Diana, welcome in. I hope you've got the donuts, because so far Mike hasn't sent me one. I thought he got them. I'm sleepy now. We'll call this Friday Eve, Diana. Chicken and cupcake. Woo! I like the sound of that too. Is this chicken from the Holly Jolly place or Happy Jolly Guy or whatever? What's the name of that? Where Mike was a week or two ago. Chicken and cupcakes. Is it a birthday? Is this for a party? Jolly Bear? Or is that Jolly Bee? Jolie Bee. Is that French? If it is, I can't pronounce it. Roast chicken today. Oh, you always have cupcakes. Man, that's my kind of living. Philippines. Filipino chicken? Well, hi, Tina. Good to see you. I hope you're doing well tonight, or as well as can be expected. Oh, you guys are killing me. I didn't have anything to eat today. Well, since this morning. Well, that's not true. I had some. I can't say nothing because I had some salsa and chips this afternoon. That was sort of lunch. Oh, like Popeyes. So a little spicy then, perhaps. I got to work on that. I said I had sauce and chips, but Brenda doesn't like hot things or spicy stuff, so she tends to buy mild salsa, and I'm not. I'd really like to have a little bit of heat in it. Is this the Shelly we know and love? And that's a different name, isn't it? Or am I just confused? Looks like her icon, icon, avatar, whatever the name of it is. But good evening, glad to see you. Been a while, I think. And if it hasn't, pardon me. Oh, you got Arby's tonight. I had an Arby's. We had an Arby's. We were somewhere and we got it might have been when we were driving home last week. We stopped and got an Arby's because we both kind of wanted something a little different. We didn't just want to. Oh, you removed the Star Walker. Okay. Well, the MK was throwing me off a little bit. Has to be our Shelly. She's a mod. Well, that makes sense. She just threw me off there with a shorter name. Diana, are you guys still getting Northern Lights this week, or have you been? Oh, bacon quiche. Oh, be still my heart. I've never had that, but if it's got bacon in it, it can't be bad. It's got to be good. It's got eggs and bacon. I don't know what else quiche has in it, but with eggs and bacon in it, it doesn't get much better than that. Well, I guess it could, but it's a damn good start. Well, Brenda's probably not going to be here tonight. I don't know. She is still not feeling too well. She had some dental surgery yesterday, so she's not too many clouds, Diana. That's true, Tina. It's an investment you eat and digest. It's gone. The eggs are terrible. Mark said speaking of that, though, Mark said out where he's at, they've had a lot of chickens that have had to be euthanized because of bird flu. He said they've come out and checked his birds, I believe, at least once, maybe twice. Ah, you have chickens. Excellent. The KP is low. KP is low. Kinetic potential? No. What does that stand for, Diana? Not being someone from the Northern Lights area, I don't know if I know that. Yeah, she's doing okay. She just I brought her home yesterday about 1, I think, and she pretty much slept most of the day, and then that's what she's been doing today. She's feeling better, but it's still hurting, still sore. But it wasn't too bad, so she should be okay. She should heal up in a couple of days and not feel too bad, I think. But you never know. 20. I just got off a 20-hour work shift. Oh, so you guys have gotten a snowstorm, Mike. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to poke fun of your current climate situation. See, since down here it's well, other than the tornadoes, it's been pleasant. It was in the 80s, almost 90 here yesterday. If you can believe that. What a place to live. Planetary K or KP is the level geomagnetic. Okay, I thought it would have something to do with the geomagnetic level or something. I had to change their feed. The Purina stuff was preventing them from really. Bought some feed from an actual feed store, and now they're laying again. Well, now I never heard about that, Shelly. I need to find out about that. We're supposed to know a egg owner, chicken layer, eggs, farm eggs person, but her name is Kelly, and we don't seem to get many eggs from her. I'm thinking somebody else is sharing that wealth, unless they're not laying. And I used to have another friend that had some chickens, and they talked about them not laying in the winter much, but Mark says his lay pretty much year round. Although this year they've not been out of the chicken house since about November 1st because of snow. They are snowed in just like everybody else out there. So, Shelly, what kind of, I don't know, you're cooking, so you may not be able to, I hate to ask too many questions, but what kind of chickens do you have? I will do that, Diana. Thank you very much. Ooh, double time is nice, Mike. There's Monarch Moments Garrett. It's okay to give Mike a hard time. It makes Diana feel good. Oh, okay. I didn't. Is that written down somewhere? Is that also in Mike's contract? Shelly, so that's a real thing. I'd read that a few chicken farmers had used that feed, and that's what happened. They changed their feed to local. That's interesting, Shelly. I've not heard that either. That's I wonder what's not in the food that does that. There's Teddy again. And you guys see his head, he's cleaning up. I guess you could say he's getting his hair and makeup done. He's doing it himself, though. I think she's trying to say she gives him hard enough time. Oh, I got my. Hey, look. I got my little emojis back, guys. Carol and Diana, who all noticed that. I can do it too. The only bad thing about that is that little emoji spot covers up some of the text if I look over there. If I'm using that screen, if I use the StreamYard screen, it's not a problem. Guys, that almost didn't come on tonight because of Brenda. I was going to go upstairs and tend to her, but she said I should come on down. So, and I felt bad about, not being available for her, but she said go for it. Oh, I'm sorry, Diana. I almost went to a beard barber the other day. I found one in Folly Beach, I think. Right on the street. They were closed and I didn't get back down by there. She told me I could go out and play. She might have, Mike. There's times when she tells me just to go out and get out of the house. She used to kind of like it when I was gone a lot. There was times when she got a lot more done when I wasn't here. For some reason, I'm not sure what she's trying to say, but okay, Tina. I'm not sure what she was trying to tell me, Mike, but she always said it nicely, but sometimes I wasn't so sure about that. I guess it worked out. Her and the girls always operated on a much looser schedule when I wasn't around, I believe. Diane tells me to get out of the house too. I bet she does, Mike. That must be maybe that's a how should I say this nicely? A married woman thing, maybe. Surely that's not on us, Mike. You think? That must be something they do. Oh, what time is it? It's 7:50. You guys, this is not really the subject, although it could be. When I was growing up, and some of you will remember this, a lot of you may not, but the TV, all the local TV stations used to go off the air if you lived here, at least at midnight or 11:30, even possibly. I guess some of them stayed on for long enough for Johnny Carson or something like that to be on. He was about it back then, and but then you got the test pattern and till 5 a.m. or whenever it came back on. But also one of the local stations where I grew up, they used to have a thing. It would say, like when the news was going to come on at 11 p.m., it would say, it's 11 o'clock p.m. Do you know where your children are? Now, I'm thinking if it's 11 o'clock p.m. and you don't know where your children are, one, they're either grown up or you're in trouble. I only get concerned when she tells me to sleep on the couch and the basement. And Garrett says, well, it's time to think of others dying and let all of us have a chance to slap him, figuratively, not actually. I don't want to slap Mike. He and I have a donut thing together. Oh my God, Mice! What? Wait a minute, Diana. You're not supposed to. I mean that. Mike, she seems a little too happy about that. Yeah, Mike, I was going to talk about that a little bit. Nashville has been in the apparently now. See, I didn't realize they were in the national news. Donut buddies. That's right, Garrett. Don't you say anything about it. You probably don't even like donuts because they're not healthy. I mean, it was all over the. As soon as I turned the national news on it at 6:30, that's the first thing I saw pop up. In fact, I recorded a couple of other stations, networks, just so I could see what they had to say. Hey, bud, what's up? Huh? Yeah, that's okay. He says as long as they weren't talking about cats, outlawing cats or anything. That would be problematic, wouldn't it? Yeah. Can I kiss your ears? Can I kiss your ears? Good boy. You're a good boy. Donuts and me have an agreement. They show up and I eat them. Well, and then you might be in the club. Mike, we'll have to discuss whether or not we let Garrett in the donut club. But that's why I said that's why I'm no longer surprise bear tonight, because I'm telling you, I just don't know what's going to happen next here. There's a guy on the internet, YouTube, who does shows and podcasts and whatnot. His name's Trey. Well, now I can't remember his last name. Maybe it's Trey Crowder. Anyway, Trey's a kind of a vocal, more liberal redneck too. And what? You want to be on the show? You want me to hold you? That's what he does now when he wants to get my attention. He pulls my beard or gets up in my face. I don't know. Sometimes he wants, if I doze off on the couch, he'll get up in my face and meow and wake me up. I'm not sure if that's because I'm missing something he wants me to do or if it's something he wants to do. Yeah, we have paper. Mike says, Garrett, he says we have paperwork to fill out if you want to be in our club. Yeah, we don't just let anybody in. We need to do a little background check. Oh, he's going to start his own club. He'll be the only member. He gets the whole dozen. Teddy is a handsome fella. And he's very soft, Carol. Unlike his sister, who's got more coarse hair. But we don't talk about that around her. She's got great big giant feet too. Shoot, it's something. She was laying when she was little. She was laying on top of this tree condo thing that we've got that has a heating pad on it that has now been plugged up for about 10 years nonstop, and it's still going. Anyway, she'd get up there and lay down and she had her legs stretched out kind of and her foot hanging off. And for her body, it just seemed like her foot was huge. So I've always kidded Brenda about her having big feet, and Brenda gets upset with me because, then she tells me something bad about Teddy. I tried calling Tim Mike and he didn't pick up. When did you try calling me and I didn't pick up? Somebody called me this evening with your ringtone, and it wasn't you. Because I called back, and I couldn't understand them. I suspect they were some foreign land, and I blocked it now. Oh, he wanted to join the donut. Oh, that's why you were trying to call me, huh? Well, I called you yesterday, Garrett, and got cut off, and then I tried to call you back, and you didn't pick up, and you never called me back. So there. Oh, you tried to call Mike. Okay. Well, Mike might be screening his calls too. Yeah, I did hang up on you. You're right. I didn't mean to, but I did. I surely did. I was checking on my wife. She was needed something, and I had to go check on her. She had gotten woken up, and she was a little hungry, and she wanted some, of all things, smushed lima beans. Or oh, Garrett, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'll come over and tuck you in tonight, and while I'm there, I'll take your man card because you definitely apparently don't deserve that anymore either. Cried yourself to sleep. What do you think, Mike? Should we take his man card? Okay, let's go back to Nashville. One of the craziest things they've done down there this week was they were going to eject 3 representatives in the House because they had joined in with some protesters about some of the really crazy things they've done this week in the last couple of weeks. And apparently they're not allowed to, they broke some rule of decorum. So I'm guessing that, that means you can't do anything they don't like. And there's a super majority in the House in Tennessee, which means it's almost all red, if you will, just to make it colorful. And so they voted. I think they have now supposedly voted one out. One passed by one vote. That's our local representative, or mine. And the other one, they were still waiting to vote. But I don't know. I don't agree with that because, they were duly elected by the people of the state. If they don't like them in the House, then they need to wait till they come up and, get somebody else to run against them. I guess it can beat them. But I feel like if the constituents voted them in a case like this, unless they do something really bad, not just, put their, break the quorum rules. The legislature in Tennessee and the House years back was a lot tougher than that. I don't think you got kicked out for breaking a rule of decorum. It might broke out into an all-out fight. But that said, there are a lot of protesters apparently surrounding the Senate the House down there, or the Capitol. Which, and if you've ever been to Nashville, sits right on top of a big hill, so you can see it forever. And I'd kind of like to see a drone shot. I'd like to see just how many people are surrounding that place on a given day right now. But it's all about everything from outlawing drag shows and drag queens to gun issues, and those 6 people got killed last week in Nashville, and almost immediately after that, probably just because they've had it on the schedule, but almost immediately after that, something came up in the legislature to make gun ownership even more convenient, and more open. Florida also got signed into law this week that they've got constitutional carry, which means everybody in Florida now can be armed. I mean, Mickey Mouse could be carrying for all I know. Which is a topic. Somebody remind me before we go off. I want to talk about Mickey Mouse just for a few minutes. I know I don't usually do Disney stuff, but this time I think I will because it's, I think, a little bit disturbing, more than other stuff that's going on lately. But anyway, So I don't know. What do you guys think about all that? The books. It's about books. It's about abortion rights. It's about gun control. It's about kids in schools being killed. 9-year-old kids. They shot 3 9-year-old kids and 3 teachers or adults. I think one might have been a janitor or a custodian or something. But he was in his 60s, and one of the other guys, adults, was in his. Matter of fact, all 3 of the adults, I think, were over 60. And come here, what's the matter? I know you can get out. And don't start that. If you want to talk on the show, you got to get up here and talk to everybody. Okay? Come on. Anyway, it's very sad, Diana. It broke my heart. I mean, and what breaks my heart too is the fact that the legislature decided to jump right on into this other thing about, gun issues rather than at least wait a few days or a couple of weeks to let that heal a little bit. And that was, and unfortunately, that was a case of transgender person, which they're also putting more and more pressure on in the state. That's another thing they've done in the last week or so that's got people upset, is tighten down on whatever rules they feel like they can do to make their lives even worse than it obviously already has been. And it's very discouraging from my perspective. It's hard. It's hard sometimes figuring out what that line is. And I'm open to ideas, but I've admitted in this show that while I tend to lean to the liberal left side of the line, and in some ways am probably pretty liberal by standards, I also have beliefs and things that put me either on the line or slightly right. But I'm a gun owner, and I do believe in the Second Amendment, but I do also believe that we've got to do something about this gun situation or safety situation. And I don't necessarily think I don't necessarily think that the solution is arming everybody in the United States. I mean, they say that, the one thing that stops when they say somebody stops the mass murder is one good person with a gun. That one good person's got to be trained, or at least, I don't know. What's Mike got to say about it here? I don't think I have better things to do than make it harder for everyone else to live. Don't think I've got. I think I understand that, Mike. I think a word or two might have missed there. Carol called and said, my son called last night and wanted to know what our school is doing to keep his little sister safe. I didn't have an answer. Damn. Carol, that's a hard one to answer. And I know there's other people in this room with kids. Garrett has 2 kids in school in California. And California is a state where gun laws are about as strict as they get in this country. And in fact, some things far stricter than I ever knew. And yet, it happens out there too. So it's not just simply making laws. And some of the laws sometimes they make laws that really don't make a lot of sense because they're not enforceable. But they could enforce. There are some that could. Sorry to hear that. Oh, where's Carol? I wish I had an answer too, Mike. I mean, I've talked about it, and it's kind of it's almost an inside joke because I don't know where to start. But I've talked about trying to figure out a way to get people together and talk about this issue that are on both sides of the handgun or both sides of the gun situation. I mean, we probably need some far left and some far right, but we also need a bunch of middle people that can hammer out some of the issues that both sides have to get it. I don't think the far left is ever going to do that. What's Doug say? Sick people kill people. They don't need a gun. They'll find a way. That's true too, Doug. I believe that, and it has happened. Some of the most horrific murders I can think of in this state have not been with a gun. Well, I don't know, because of the sheer size of them, that may not be true, but there's been some bad ones. Hey, back again? He went and got him something to eat. That's why he was hollering. Now, you ready? You have something to add? Teddy's a funny cat. Teddy doesn't like guns, and I'm not sure why. Teddy's never been shot at. Teddy's never, he's never been out. He's never been threatened by a soul. But if I had a shotgun out or something and it made a noise like chambering a shotgun round, he leaves the room. He won't hang around. And I don't know how he knows that. I don't know why that's become a trigger point for him. And he's a cat. Pretty soon, hang on a minute, Garrett. I'm going to put you back in there, but let me put Mike in first. Pretty soon, school is going to turn into jails for kids. In some ways, they've already locked them in. To be honest, we had some lockdowns in San Jose with our kids in school because of threats called in or armed man running around the neighborhood near the school. And that was recently, wasn't it, Garrett? Or has that been a while back? Doug, I'm curious how that works. We do keep all of our doors locked. Oh, wait a minute. What did Doug say? I missed something, Doug. Oh, here we go. We have armed security at all the schools I work at, and all doors are locked. That's kind of what they do here. At least I think they do. I'm not positive we've got armed security at every school. And I do think that armed security, if they're trained security people that really know what they're doing and are properly trained, and I have to point that out, because you can't just put a guy in a uniform, give him a revolver or a semi-automatic Glock and say, you're the security guard, don't let a bad guy in. I don't think they know what they're doing. And let me go back to where I was at. I think it was at Mike. Or not Mike, but Garrett. Oh, I already did that. Okay. And then he said, so I would prefer to have armed security at the schools. The solutions are to lock the kids in a classroom without anything way to fight back. Yeah, they do call them kill boxes. That's very true. The students have remarked about that, and it's happened. A guy gets in a locked room, the kids can't get out, and they just, it's the old ducks in a barrel, fish in a barrel thing. Oh, you guys got locked down, Doug? And Diana says they did. You did too, Diana? What was your all's about? I don't mean to sound, whatever I'm sounding like through the years. Okay. And then Mike said that happened one day when I was at school, parking lot, waiting to pick up the kids. I told myself I saw a guy running around with a gun, I would have run over him with my car. Well, that's a point. Hey, Kelly, the Mickey Bunch is here. Gary says, I'm actually fine with teachers who take train to carry and have to keep up training. And that's another thing, Garrett. This is one of the states where people were up in arms and wanted to arm every teacher in the classroom. A lot of teachers didn't want that. A lot of teachers aren't qualified for that. If some of them are, especially if they've been in the military, male or female, and they are trained, and they've got to have reoccurring training, I would think every year that would be like a summer school thing every year to keep people up to date on methods and policies. And I'm not against that, but I don't think just saying we'll give everybody a gun, all the teachers will have a gun, that way nobody will come in. I don't think that's going to work, because some teachers won't know what to do, for one thing. I think there's enough ex-military out there, and that they could find enough trained people Well, when I went to school, I had several former military teachers who'd been back in Vietnam, and had come back, gotten degrees, and were teaching school. And somebody like that could probably, unless they were so against guns now that they didn't want to. But then again, we didn't seem to have this problem back then. Let me try to catch up again, guys. It's a dumb solution, more made for legal reasons than practical ways to evade a gunman. What? Wait a minute, Garrett. What did you say? I missed something again. I'm actually fine with teachers take training. Is that what you're talking about, Garrett? The training part and arming teachers? Guy running around with a gun. Diana, did I miss something there? I'm sorry, guys. I'm having an awful time tonight. My co-reader's not here giving me hints. Annual training. Okay. Mike, Garrett, Doug, I'm sorry you had to deal with that scary situation. I'm sorry. Well, I don't know if you did, Carol. You said your son asked. And you know what? I'm sorry he even had felt the need to ask. Line of sight for firing right caliber bullet, not to over penetrate. Yeah, they got to think all that kind of stuff through, Garrett. You're absolutely correct. Kelly says, thanks for joining in, Kelly. If I had young kiddos, I would homeschool them. I believe that schools should have armed security. It's terrible, but it seems like this American we live in now. It does. And that's I'm not always been a big homeschool proponent. I'm not saying I'm against it. I think there's other issues, but that's another topic of discussion. But we had a representative here who's a guy I personally think is a dweeb, and that's not just for political reasons. It's because of other things we've had run-ins with him for in this state. He came out the other day in a news interview, just man on the street kind of thing, and they stuck a mic in his face, and in Nashville, and he said it's like my daddy said. He said you can't stop the criminals, so you might as well just learn how to deal with them, or something to that effect. And then he said if you don't want your kids killed in school, then keep them home and homeschool them. I mean, it was stupid. It was just irresponsible way, I think, for an elected official to act in this discussion. I said, nope, I never remember practicing a lockdown. I remember practicing a little bit for hurricanes or tornadoes, or a storm or fire drill. And I was right in school, right at the tail end of the old, get down under cover, tuck cover, and roll kind of thing, or whatever it was, where they told us how to hide from a nuclear blast. But, get under your desk and you'll be safe somehow. Carol said, my daughter and son-in-law were considering homeschooling their son when the time comes because of all the violence. And, that's a good point. I mean, I don't know how to say this right. I shouldn't say it's a good point. That I think, Carol, I think that is true. I think that's going to become an issue. He said on TV. Yeah, he said that on TV, Mike. It wasn't the only thing he said, but that's just the main ones. He's known for that, though. He's a motorcycle rider. This is where he got crossways with me years ago. He's a motorcycle rider, or sort of, and has several. I don't know if he's a collector kind of guy, but he's got several. And he waged a one-man war in the state of Tennessee trying to get rid of helmet laws. Now, there's lots of people in the state of Tennessee that don't want to wear a motorcycle helmet, but there's also a lot of us that believe in the safety of it, and felt like that was irresponsible for him and the things he did about it. You'd have to see the whole history of it, but it was. I mean, you gotta base that on also how much money it cost. How much? Well, he's bringing that in money into it, but that's an issue. Because head injuries and catastrophic brain injuries in that situation are far greater, and they cost the states much more money to take care of people. It just all went round bad. But yes, Diane, we never had to do a lockdown because of school violence. I do remember having a couple of bomb threats in the 70s, but that went out of style for a long time. Nowadays, that can still happen again. But Doug, I homeschool our daughter since 5th grade. She'll be a senior next year. And I hope that's worked out for you, Doug. I mean, make something clear. I don't think homeschooling is a bad thing. What I worry about and what I've seen myself is kids who aren't exposed to other people. They're not acclimated to how to act and be around other people a lot. And if you do it right and don't isolate them that way, then it's probably not a bad thing. And you're willing to put in the work and, do the time and make sure they know what, learn their lessons. Carol says, or Diana says, I wish we could have homeschooled ours, just not financially feasible these days. Well, that's a good point, Diana, because I'm going to assume you mean you can't be home to do it because everybody's got to work. Maybe I'm wrong, but Doug, I think it's a great option for people who take the time to do it well. I'm sure you researched it and are doing it well. And that's what I was trying to say, Carol. So I think you did a much better job of stating that. I think it's a matter of doing it well and really teaching them and staying on it. And I think exposing them to other things, to other people, being around people, just knowing how to be around other students and things like that. I think if you do all that, then I think you could be at that. And I do think that's going to happen more and more for people who can afford it. I grew up because I was old. My cousins on my mom's side, my first cousins, all went to like a 2-room schoolhouse for years. And it went, in fact, I think it's the same school my mom went to. And it went up to 12th grade. Maybe after 9th they went to high school nearby. But it was, there was 2 or 3 classes in one room. But you didn't have it. What I'm getting at there, small schools. And actually, even though it was mixed grades, they probably got more attention from individual teachers than we ever can now because of overcrowding and such. Zippity doo, Doug. I agree. She is very involved in our church and youth group. Well, that's good, Doug. That's a good one. I mean, as long as they get out and are exposed to those kinds of things and have a chance to acclimate and socialize. My daughter talks about this all the time, even with pets. If you don't socialize your pets, they don't know how to act around other people or other dogs. Not comparing your kids to a pet. It's just an example. I've loved having my kids go to the school where I work. I know the teachers. Well, that's another thing, Carol. Our kids got to go for a few years. Our kids got to go to one of the schools where Brenda worked. So she was there too. If something happened, she would have been on the spot. And I think there was a certain amount of comfort went with that too, even though most of these issues weren't relevant at that time. Wow, I've actually got people in here and the chat's moving tonight. Hit that thumbs up button and subscribe if you haven't already. I would appreciate it. Hey, Dean, happy birthday, Dean. Mr. Turkey Legster. Okay. $2.49 a dozen for eggs. That's actually cheap in some places, Doug. Is that what you're saying? Eggs cost a lot. We need the double income. Yeah, it's true. That's about right, Diane. I went to the store the other day. I guess it was last week, and even though I've been trying to pay attention to it, there were so many things that seems like they've gone up again. It's just unbelievable right now. For a while, that part of the inflation wasn't really hitting here, but it is now. Okay, guys, let me see if I can catch up. If somebody, Carol or one of the mods, if you see something I missed, please help me see it again. Ding me or something. I don't know. I don't know how to do. I don't know if private chat would alert me or not. Well, you're welcome. Hey, Cherie's in here. Hey, Cherie. Surfer Girl 326 has entered the room. Shelly, I homeschooled my kids. Not easy, but was definitely one of the best decisions we made. I thought you did, Shelly. I wasn't sure if you were still cooking or in here, but I thought you did. I thought you told me that before, or I heard it, saw it in a conversation. In Arizona, you can use your public school money towards attendance at a private school. That very much helped me send my kiddos to Catholic school. Yeah, I had mixed feelings about that, Kelly, but I'm sure it helped. I mean, again, that's another thing I struggle with. As long as it's used appropriately and divided out correctly, I guess. I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about how that worked. Speaking of eggs, I love me a nice cheese omelet. Yeah, me too, Dean. I like to take, close your ears a minute, Carol. I like to take country sausage and chop it up, cook it up, and then put it in the middle of the egg with some cheese and maybe some red and green peppers chopped up real fine and cook it that way. Good. They don't do that here, Kelly. We would have to pay for the private school in full, and that's the way it is in most states. I think, Doug, but they've been working on that here for a long time, wanting to figure out a way to do that or get that in. And like I said, I don't know how I feel about that, but for the sake of this discussion, I'd like to hear your opinions on it, especially if you've done it or if it's worked out for your family. Doug, I saw that somewhere, and I meant to go back and look because I was helping Brenda. I don't remember now what I realized I'd missed it, and so maybe I can get a chance to go back and look at that. My first one. Oh, what are you talking about, Shelly? Bacon quiche is delicious. That sounds good to me. Like I said, I mean, I'm a little bit in the Emerald School of Cooking there. Pork fat rules, and bacon is heavenly. It's like the upper tier, the pork fat family. Well, I think all private schools are really high here too, and that's part of the other issues. I wasn't going down this road tonight, but I will since we've talked about it. My concern has always been taxpayer dollars spent on private schools taken away from public schools that need the money even worse than the private schools do. Yeah, you can take your kids out and it's helpful for the parents in that regard. But most private schools around here are church run, and they seem to be doing way better than the public schools do in the sense that they've got money and teachers and they're supported better, I think, in many ways. I don't know. Like I said, I haven't done it. I'd love to talk to somebody who has and I know more about it. Then I could talk about it with more education. Is Amy in here too? Oh, she's on in the background. Okay. Oh, you had Amy on. Oh, I'm losing track, guys. I'm sorry. Why is Mike laughing at me? What have I done, Mike? Okay, let me try to catch back up. I was very fortunate to have a private. Sherry's saying I was very fortunate to go to a private school my junior and senior years. My uncle's mom paid for most of my tuition, but I worked for it to help. Well, that's what I would have had to have done if I'd wanted to go. There are here too, Mike. I'm not a big fan of a lot of private schools, but some are very good. Well, sure, certainly. And I mean, that's always been the thing about some private schools are very good. I mean, to get right down to it, some of the best universities in this country are private. So I don't know if that includes them or not, but or how that would work. Tell me about that. Is Kelly still in here? Kelly, can they also get some of the tuition for like state universities or private universities for that way, or do you know? I don't, because there's some states that for a while that had lotteries that were doing well, and if they were actually doing what they said they were going to do, you could go to school free up to a certain point, and you can here if you work at it, but they won't just give it to people. They've got to, they got to earn it by doing some public service. And it's actually, they don't have to do that much public service, but they can go at least to a community college for the first 2 years, not pay a dime. And I was working with students when I was still working to get them to come out and give them projects that they could do with us so that they could earn that, that tuition money or that free school for a couple of years. I mean, it was the best thing that came out of that as far as I was concerned. But some of them I don't know if some of them didn't want to because they weren't really ready to go to college, or if they just didn't bother, thought it wasn't important. But they found out because the schools, they didn't put up with it. They kicked them out, at least the ones I know about. Our public school gets about $30,000 a year for my daughter. I don't see a dime of that money. For you homeschooling her? That's interesting. I didn't know that. I never thought about it that way, I guess. I would have thought they wouldn't have gotten paid for her as a total number of students, but that's interesting, Doug. Again, I need to learn more about it. I went to public school, our kids went to public school, and, that's what I know about. Mike says, I'm on the fence with private schools sometimes, Carol. Kelly says, I was a public school teacher for many years. I sent my kids to private school because they could get a great education and also practice their faith. And if that's important to you and your family, then I think that's a valid point to make, and, what you might want to do. That's him. Amy is going to be on Doug's channel next week. Okay. He was letting me know. Sorry, Cherie, I got confused there. I was trying to keep up and not doing a good job of it. Okay, y'all, gotta go. My stream ready to go. Take care. See you later, Dean. Let me see. Maybe everybody say bye to Dean and I can catch up. Mike says, I worked at a private school as a project manager, didn't get along with the nuns. Well, down here, there's a lot of private schools that aren't Catholic run, so there's not nuns, although there are 2 or 3 big ones here. But they're still religious. A lot of them are still religious based. And I don't know how much it costs to send your kids there. I don't know how that works. You should have, what's Carol saying? You should have brought them donuts. Yeah, Mike, did you ever think of donuts? And Mick Kelly said the nuns are my favorite. We had very nice ones though. Yeah, I think, did they not still smack knuckles with rulers and that kind of stuff? That's what they always say in the movies. Doug says Pennsylvania is a very messed up state. Oh, come down, right in that boat with you there, Doug. I can't I can't not include Tennessee there because we're about as messed up as you can get right now. I don't know. There just seems to me like a lot of time being spent doing stuff right now that could probably take a back seat. Okay, I can get down that path here in a minute, I guess. Let me see if I can catch up. I didn't know. I didn't know you shouldn't tell them enterprise. Mike. Now y'all understand why I want him to sleep on the couch. I get it. Maybe the basement is a good idea, Diana. My brother got kicked out of Catholic school in the first grade. He's still a scoundrel. So what you're telling me, both of you, Mike and Kelly, is that nuns don't have that great of a sense of humor when you get right down to it. Or at least it's somewhat limited. Oh, me. Mike, my favorite donut is maple icing with bacon on. You know what, Doug? I love maple ice donuts, but I don't think I've had one yet with bacon. I got to try that. That's not something anybody has around here regularly unless you walk into a fancy donut shop, and they probably do, but I haven't been in one. I always see people eating those down at Disney World, or at, not Disney World, I guess, but at downtown. What is that called now? It's not downtown Disney. You know where I'm talking about. The nuns Diana works with have a really good sense of humor. Well, that's good to know. Maybe it just depends on the color of your jokes. Come to my work, the nuns there have a great sense of humor. Well, there you go, Mike. Go hang out with Diana. Sounds like you and her nuns would get along fine. Yeah, that's an interesting. I'm going to say something, and if it's really stupid, you guys can tell me, and I can take it. It's an interesting point. I wonder. I almost hate to say this. I wonder how many private schools have had school shootings versus public schools. And do private schools, if they have security, do they have their own private security they've hired, or do the local police, what do we call it, resource officers or sheriff's officers or deputies or whatever, do they do it? I don't know the answer to that. And I say that like I know answers to anything else, which I don't, but okay, Kelly, I see a problem. My brother was gambling his lunch money at recess, telling dirty jokes, and snuck out to go to Dairy Queen in the first grade. Was this his first year in the first grade, or was he 15 in the first grade? That's down here. That might have been a problem. The kid in second grade that's been there 10 times. They get up to a certain age, and then you just can't hardly teach them. Or keep them on the res anyway. There you go, Mike. Kelly, there you go. Hook Mike up with your brother. Gambling in the first grade. I think people that swapped lunches and there probably were bullies taking lunch money, but I don't think I knew anybody that young that was gambling. So I think if he had been in my school, I would either been right there with him or making sure to avoid him so I didn't get thrown out too. I'm not sure which. But it sounds like fun. I don't know what they'd have done to us in first grade if they caught us gambling. Because, see, I look back at my first grade and I can't think of anybody in my first grade class that would even know how to gamble. Although that's probably not true, but I don't remember it. I remember playing. Well, say I wasn't even allowed to. We used to play marbles, but if anybody knows what that is, but some people gambled that way. They kept the marbles. If you won the marbles. You kept them, and we never were allowed to play keepsies. We had to give ours back. We always did. I always thought that was the fair thing to do anyway. But some people played for keeps, literally. I was trying to think if anybody did anything else that I can think of. I know about what marbles are. I use them inside my slingshot. Oh, well, yeah. Oh, sorry, guys. My knees hurting. Give me a minute. Yeah, Mike, that's we did too. We used to use those in what we call wrist rockets. Maybe that's what you're talking about. He's a hoot. You should hear what he did in high school. Oh, Kelly, I can't wait to hear that. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. I can't tell what I did in high school because some of it's still not legal in this state. Although I guess the statute of limitations surely has run out on it because there weren't felonies, but we were not being entirely straight and level. But then again, I was known for that too, so that was my early years as being a protester and a question asker. Okay, did Garrett go away? Because he suddenly, no, there he is. Mike, you need to go to Catholic school. Mike will be breaking those rulers. He ain't going to put up to that too long, I don't think. How many people in the room went to it? And we're changing the subject from what we started with craziness in Tennessee, but how many people went to a school where they still did corporal punishment? And by that, I just mean, paddling or. I often wonder if anybody ever went to a school where that was much more. I hate to say brutal or barbaric. I always think about kids that got in schools that used the cane, literally, where kids could get caned for, and I can't imagine that. I can't imagine being legal. Moi. I'm not even going to ask you why he did that, Garrett. Although if it's something you want to talk about, by all means, we'll throw it out on the floor. We'll see if anybody picks it up to dance with it. But I hate to hear that. Sorry that happened. To this day, I remember him getting paddled. Was working pissed off. Well, then in that case, maybe, sacrifices must be made. He was a bully. That's why he did it. Well, there you go. Then he probably got what he deserved, in my opinion. I don't think any kid should be beaten in the true sense of the word, but a swat on the butt never hurt anybody that bad. I went to school when they still used leather straps and leather paddles, and I knew kids that went in and got a swat every morning to help them remember where they were at. If nothing else, they swung them around so people pay, to get people to intimidate kids, I guess. Your laughter has traumatized me. Oh, I'm sorry, Garrett. Carol says our principal had a paddle. One of the teachers used to pull kids' hair. Oh, I never knew anybody that pulled hair. But I knew plenty that had paddles. Some of them had real thick. They'd have them special made too. They'd have like a wooden board cut down and be an oak plank with a handle, and they'd drill holes in it, so air would go through. Sometimes they'd whistle when they swung them. That was an intimidation factor. I'm going to need. Garrett says I'm going to need therapy. Carol, you will be my therapist. Okay, Carol, he's putting it all on you. That's all started because I wanted to play a tomato in the school play, but I had to be the banana. It was very upsetting. Oh, Garrett. I don't know whether to believe you or not. I had a I might as well tell this one. I had an 8th grade teacher. His name was Mr. Woods. And Mr. Woods was actually, I thought he was a pretty good guy, but he didn't put up with a lot of nonsense. And we had another kid in the class. His name was Lenny. And we were all, the homerooms were divided up by your, alphabetical order, basically. So many kids, so many kids, so many kids. And somehow I ended up in the front. Now, I don't know if that was by choice or if he put some of us up there. That's probably it. But he had an interesting way of getting the class's attention. He would walk in every day and take his fingers like this, and he could hit the corner of his desk like a woodpecker, so to speak. And it had a loose place. These were all wooden desks. And when you hit it, it rapped against the bottom part of the desk, and it was loud, and it got your attention. The kids knew it was time to shut up, get ready for roll call or whatever. He also taught classes, but I just had him for homeroom, I think. And so one day, somebody who shall at this point remain nameless until he's sure about those, what I said a minute ago. Damn, I can't remember anything. Oh, it no longer valid. Whatever. I can't even think. And I didn't mean me. I mean somebody that thought about folding up some paper and putting it under there and kind of wedging it. So when he came into the class, he went rap, because he always hit it hard the first couple of times, and it didn't budge, and his fingers bent. And he turned and walked out in the hall, and another homeroom teacher came out at the same time and saw him. Or classes were just starting, and caught him because he was about to pass out. Apparently, when he hurt his fingers real bad, he was prone to passing out, and we didn't know that at the time. So, needless to say, we had to be real careful. But after a while, he started checking it for paper. So he wasn't so dumb after all. Okay, what are we doing here? I had to show shoplift a tomato outfit. I thought you weren't going to get. Please tell me that's not true. I started because I want to play it. Tell me, I thought you said you had to be the banana. Some Fruit of the Loom guy. I think it was who owned it. I was caught red-handed. Wow. Got it red-handed. Tomatoes are red, so do y'all get it? Yeah, we got it. Unfortunately, we got it. Anyway, but that guy had a paddle, and Lenny Smith. I got the stories mixed. Lenny, every morning he got to where every morning in homeroom he'd sit in the back and he'd cut up with somebody. I mean, he'd always got in trouble in homeroom, not a class, not interrupting a class, which he did too, but homeroom. And the guy was actually not such totally a bad sort. And he was kind of funny, but he just never knew when to shut up. And so it got to where every morning when we started homeroom, Mr. Woods would say, "Lenny," and Lenny would come up, put his hands on the wall beside the blackboard, and Mr. Woods would give him 2 smacks with a paddle, or bend him over, have him lean over on the desk and whack, and then go to your seat, Lenny, because he just went ahead and did it so he wouldn't, because he knew he was going to be in trouble. And, that helped him a little bit, but sometimes he had to get called back up again. And nobody wanted to be, paddled, needless to say, but, nobody was really getting hurt bad. we thought it was bad, but honestly, most of them didn't swing that hard. Okay, I'm gonna not take up for child abusers. That's not the point, but I don't think some of that was not all bad. But I grew up in an age when that's what parents whip kids, or whip's such a bad word too. That, I mean, nobody ever whipped me, but I got my butt smacked and I got a belt used on it a few times, but I never got scarred or bruised. Well, that could be. I may be wrong. I may be scarred mentally to this day. Everything was true about the paddling in your name. The tomato story was actually a story Mike told me about his childhood. Sorry, Mike, for stealing your life story. Okay, Mike, is that true? Oh, we got to know about that. That's almost too outlandish to believe. Well, anyway, as you well know now by watching your network news, Tennessee's crazy, and we seem to be going crazier by the minute. I don't know which state right now is crazier, Tennessee or Florida, but they're certainly competing with each other for, um, you know, trying to push the envelope as far as they can back in the direction that we were once in here. I do have real problems with a lot of that, because back when a lot of these guys think it was the good old days, it wasn't good for everybody, and they're not making it so good for people now, and it's a tough issue. Somebody's killing Diana. Mike, are you killing Diana? Get your hands off her throat if you are. Hey, Tim, a couple of weeks ago, I sent you a link of a news reporter interviewing a parent discussing the shooting in Nashville. Well, I usually watch those, Mike. Let me give me just a moment to go back and look at my Instagram and just see if I remember it. Hang on just a minute. I keep them, and I do try to watch everything you guys send me, and some you don't. Yes, I did, but I'd probably have to listen. Let me hang on just a minute. Let me tell you what, guys. Let me mute for just a second. I want to listen. I want to listen to it again so I can remember what Mike's asking me, because I did watch it, but now I don't remember all the details. Okay, Mike. Yes, I absolutely do remember that now, but I had to refresh my memory. I look at stuff like that every day, so it after a while, it was interesting. And I don't know. Let me see if I can share that just for a minute. Garrett, I need to get you to show me how to do something, if you know, and that is to, when I share some of this stuff, they can't hear it, and I used to be able to, and but I want you to see if you can hear this. If I get in trouble for it, so be it. I just get in trouble for it. But it's worth hearing, and I think this lady makes a really good point. Oh, wrong. I started it too quick. This is a. Let me see if I can make it go away and come back to it and start all over again. Oops. Here we go. Can you guys hear any of that? Okay. Well, if you can't see it, I'll stop it, and or can't hear it, and I'll give it to you. And or I mean, I'll put it in chat. I copied it already, and you guys can maybe listen to it later. Well, they might, Gary. I don't know. It was working fine for me before. What do you mean play it on my phone? Oh, just hold it up to the microphone. Okay, hang on a minute. Give me a minute. Wrong. Oh, my stomach's growling. Well, where? Oh, there it is. I think this is the one you mean, Mike. All right, guys, here we go. I'm not going to show you the picture. Well, no, I'm not going to try to show you the picture. Or is that what you meant? I don't know what to do. Let's try it here and see if you can hear it.
Aren't you guys tired of covering this? Aren't you guys tired of being here and having to cover all of these mass shootings? I'm from Highland Park, Illinois. My son and I survived a mass shooting over the summer. I am in Tennessee on a family vacation with my son, visiting my sister-in-law. I have been lobbying in D.C. since we survived a mass shooting in July. I have met with over 130 lawmakers. How is this still happening? How are our children still dying, and why are we failing them? These shootings and these mass shootings will continue to happen until our lawmakers step up and pass gun safety legislation. Aren't you guys tired of this? Are you guys sick of it? We have to do something. We'll all have to call our lawmakers, and we all have to make our lawmakers make change now, or this is going to keep happening, and it's going to be your kid, and your kid, and your kid, and your kid next. Aren't you guys tired of covering this? Aren't you guys?
Okay, so could you hear any of that? Somebody tell me, because Garrett's the only one I see right now in chat. And I don't know if he heard it or not. But you can play it. The whole point there is this lady, and think about the odds of this happening any other time. This lady is from Highland Park, Illinois, where they've had a mass shooting, and she and her child survived that. Now they come to Nashville for vacation, and they're at the school, I guess, to pick up their niece or something, and it happens all over again. And now this is a different part of their family. Now I'll assume that it wasn't one of the children who was shot. I have a lot of notifications on the top of my phone. You mean that whole list that goes across there, Doug? I have to empty that out a lot. And I don't know. I need to turn a bunch of that off. But anyway. And Garrett says people need to. All right, where am I? people need to treat each other better if they really want to stop the hate or even make a dent in the violence. And no, it'll keep happening until we start protecting our kids like we protect every politician, bank, and entertainer in the world. Now, you got a point there. I don't know about a bank, but a few of those have been robbed. But I do think that's the way it has to be in school. And there are churches now, at least in some parts of the country, where they have people within the church, members who attend, services, who are armed now because of these threats in worship places of worship. And that's sad. I mean, I never thought I'd live to see that day. I don't think you have to be a Christian or a Jew or a Hindu or any other or Muslim to realize that's not a good thing. I mean, I don't think any one group in particular is the only one seeing the problem with that, but it happens, and we've had some church shootings here, and one of them was again national news, and 2 or 3 people died, and in that case, it was a former husband of a friend of mine, and from many years ago, they were far removed, but still, she had been married to him, and that was really hit home. But anyway, my problem is I'm conflicted between the rights of ownership in this country, the safe and I'm going to say proper use of firearms in this country. And by that, I mean target shooting, hunting, and unfortunately self-protection, home defense, self-defense. But I can't decide if everybody having a gun is the answer. I've known too many people in my life that I would not want holding a gun in any situation, much less a stressful one. So that's the kind of thing we've got to think about. But I also believe that there has to be a way to work out security measures, assault weapons usage issue, purchase. There's got to be a way to work through this without a total ban, as some would like to have, or completely no bans and everything's wide open like Dodge City. And to do that, it's going to take both sides of that argument. And until one side decides to come to the table and at least debate it, I don't think it's going to happen. And right now, I don't see that either. Tina says something. Let me get that. Yes, and start believing that life has value, and start treating people with mental illness rather than as poor little babies, as ill people who need and deserve treatment. Rather than, yes, I think I got what you're saying there. And I would probably agree with that. I think I do. The mental illness situation in this country is one that's been long overdue anyway. And in many ways, I see I do see a fair number of these problems coming home to roost because we refuse to deal with mental illness in this country. For some reason, it's still taboo. It's still something we don't want to talk about. It's like, Aunt Sally's got a lot of problems and she's ready to go kill somebody, but we really don't want to talk about it, Well, I don't know, Tina. Tell us. I mean, I could think back on that, but I mean, Columbine is when I count them. We have to check that, but okay. The ban is Total ban is a pipe dream anyway. The only people that will give up their guns are those who follow laws. True. The people who are willing to kill don't. And you're absolutely right, Tina. I don't argue that point whatsoever. It's always been the issue. And part of my problem with that is not with that, but you're right. It's like a lady told me when I was growing up. You come up to a fence or a door and there's a lock on it. You can't get in the barn or you can't get in the fence. And the way she put it years ago was locks are only made for, to keep the honest people out. Because if you're not honest, it's not going to matter. And the same way I think with this. So we got to figure out a way to make that more important. But there are laws on the books that could help at least curtail it. I believe in two things. I think there needs to be some more discussion about it. But I do believe that there are laws on the books that if they were improperly enforced would help some. And my problem there with the far right gun owners is that, or not far right, but the really hardcore ones, is they don't want to talk about that either. I mean, they're not willing to. Well, they say their argument is often the laws are already there and you're not enforcing them, so they're not working. And then when they are tried to be enforced, then they complain that they're being overly policed. So I mean, there's got to be some. I mean, for a long, long time in this country, this was not an issue, at least not like it is today. Guns have been in households for all of our history. And in some cases, probably more households per capita than today. Well, maybe not today. But this wasn't a problem. So the values, the rights of people versus the human rights part of it, there's got to be a way to work that out. Okay. Diana agrees with Tina. Garrett says, I think there needs to be some sensible laws like age limits. Not so easy to sell guns. I do too. Criminals can find guns on the street whenever they want, and I don't disagree. Mass shootings started after we closed all the mental illness facilities. People wait months to see a mental health professional. Then they throw a pill at them and send them on their way. I believe that, Tina. I thought that too. I just don't know dates and times. I agree with Doug and Tina, but I also agree with Garrett. Oh, don't say that out loud, Carol. When people want to kill, there is arson. Run people over, knives, bombs. Good Lord, that people start getting more deadlier items to hurt. They're the homeless. They're living on the streets, not only endangering themselves, but the rest of society. I'm well aware of how the mentally ill are treated. Tina, I'm glad you're bringing that up because I don't think you're wrong. I think that's a good point. I guess I'm agreeing with you. I'll just put it that way. Knives aren't really as deadly, but there was a guy a few years back attacked a school elementary kids and stabbed 14. Somebody knows what they're doing and is determined they can do a lot of damage with a knife too, or a pitchfork, or a hammer. I think we need to figure out how to recognize the people who have mental health issues that would do things and find the way. And Tina's got a really good point, at least in this country. And if it's the same way in Canada, I'd like to know. But in this country, there was a point when they kind of opened up the mental health facilities and just kind of turned people out because I guess what I thought it was, or remember it being, was a lack of money. Mental illness just wasn't being treated like real illness. It was like it was, tie your laces up and get going. You can pull yourself up by the bootstraps and you can get over it. And there's too much of that in this country. I've had depression in my life and I know it's real. And I forgot how many died. If he had a gun, it would have been more efficient. True. Tina says, but instead of charging and imprisoning those who mistreat the patients, they close them all up, literally throwing the mentally ill baby out with the bathwater. Very good point, Tina. And I missed something there. Mike said, this morning at work we had a lockdown. I was outside working. I heard on the two-way that they have an unauthorized person in the building. Yeah, some in Canada, mental health was not a thing. Same in Canada. And it's so wrong that we haven't addressed it. It's like we've been ashamed of mental illness forever. Our compound is supposed to be secure. Oh, that's a fun thing. I've had that happen on airports, Mike, years ago when they really tightened security up. I worked in the welfare agency for 35 years. Our governor literally said they have the right to be homeless. I suppose they do, but they also had the right, they should have had the right to be treated properly. And this person in our compound, and this person had mental illness problems. Man, that's bad. That is rough, and I agree with that. I know that has been an issue for a long time in this country. I've talked to other people, other professionals about this. And like I said, we go on dealing with it by turning around and looking the other way. They're trying to address it here now, but I often wonder if it's too late. I'd like to think it's never too late, Diana, but the road's steeper when you wait too long, that's for sure. And so it's going to take more to get back there. But if we don't start sometime, you're right, we'll never catch up. In Pittsburgh, we had a guy walk into a Jewish synagogue, and I remember that, Doug. I remember that very well. That's not been that many years ago. Now he's claiming mental illness so he doesn't get the death penalty. Well, we've had others do that too. I think Sirhan got that for shooting Robert Kennedy. And he was up for parole, I think, a couple of years ago. I don't believe he got it. And then there was the lady that shot Gerald Ford or shot at him. And I think, she was one of the Manson girls. And I think she was treated that way too. But that very well could be an issue. And, mental illness is illness, whether we want to think about that or not. And if that's what caused them to do that, then I'm not saying they should be out on the streets, but I certainly think they should be treated for it, not just thrown in a pen, which is another good point. And I started to use this topic tonight, and I decided not to. But maybe next week we'll talk about solitary confinement as a treatment in our prison system and what you think about that. Garrett remembers that $500,000 government vehicle with keys in them. Oh, I'm not catching all you're saying, Mike, and I'm sorry. I didn't mean to ignore you. So did the guy who shot Ronald Reagan and John Lennon. Yes, that's true, Tina. And I'll be honest with you, Tina. I don't know if you're agreeing or disagreeing at this point, but I think they were crazy. I think they did have something wrong with them. Whether that's I don't know what how the punishment should rank for that. They still took a life, and if you think that should be not avenged, but that should take the death penalty, then I don't know how we separate that. But I definitely think those guys were a couple of screws loose, had a couple of bricks shy of a load. But maybe if they'd had help before that, maybe that wouldn't have happened. So it's I don't know. It is a tough issue, but it's certainly one that needs to be addressed if we're going to fix some of these other problems. Sometimes I look at my coffee cup to see how much longer the show can last, because there's not much more left in the cup. So anybody out on the street with a mental illness is not good for anybody. Nope, sure not. Let me tell you, not really a funny story about me and lockdowns. As most of you know by now, I work for a federal agency also. And when I first started with them, we were taking some training, and we were told to. I mean, I was a contractor at that time, so I didn't go to this particular training at that time anyway. Went later, but they asked me to stay. I was still working on my master's degree at 40 something. So they asked me to stay there and answer the phones, and just in case we had or not customers, but applicants or user property issues come up, something that might need somebody to talk to, somebody take some notes or whatever. So I said, sure, I'll do that. And other than being boring, it was pretty easy work in that regard. But I'm sitting there one day, and I've not been there that long. I hadn't been with the agency that long. I didn't know many people. I mean, outside my office building, I didn't know much of anybody really. So I get a call one day, and it's a man introduces himself as Captain so and so with our police department. We had what some people call public safety or our own police to guard our properties and things and power plants and that sort of stuff at that time. And I actually think I knew him. I think I'd met him before in the office because we had some officers that were based out of our office. And he starts telling me to lock the doors and to be aware that such and such person is currently being hunted. They're hunting him because they believe he was a threat to anybody in the agency and maybe people like me who were sitting in a triple wide trailer in the middle of nowhere. And they said he could have a bomb, and for me to be sure to be on the alert for him. So I asked the gentleman on the phone if he could verify if he could prove his rank and ID, and please fax me a picture of this guy that they're talking about because I have no idea who he is. And they didn't know. I said, well, you do know that I could be sitting here with him in my office right now and I wouldn't know who he was. So after a little while, they called me back and said, stand down. They caught the guy, and he really hadn't made that big a threat. He had been upset with a boss who was a real jerk anyway. And he made some kind of threats, but he didn't make a threat like they had elevated it to. And so that was kind of a scary day for Tim at work because I didn't know if some guy was going to blast his way through the door and, come in there and plant a bomb under my seat and tie me to a chair. And it was kind of weird, feeling totally unprotected and somewhat unsafe. Guys, and yes, anybody who wants to kill a bunch of people is mentally ill, but they shouldn't just have a pill thrown out. Yes, no, they should not, Tina. And I'm sorry if I said it sounded that way. I agree. While chemical imbalance and pills might help some people, that's not enough. For someone like this needs much more personal attention than that. I'm not a mental health specialist, but I know that that's not what they just need. They need a lot more than that. And they need to not be just turned out and given pills that make them feel funky so they end up stopping to take them. And then it gets even worse. Guilty but mentally ill. Treated but still incarcerated. Agree. And Diana said, we had a guy stab a kid with an X-Acto knife on a Greyhound bus and try to eat him. He was out of prison in less than 4 years. He tried to eat a kid on the bus. Now that is terrible. He killed the kid. Damn. Yeah, I made it through. That didn't bomb me, but in fact, people used to make fun of me a little bit for that. And I said, hey guys, I didn't know this guy. For all I knew, he was, the Unabomber. and treated but incarcerated. Tony says, "Hey, Tony, I'm thinking you'd been in here, but you hadn't been. Thank you for the thumbs up, buddy. Got to go to work. Well, have a good evening at work." And Tina said, "Also, by the way, guns are not as easy to obtain as people think it is. Here in New York, it's virtually impossible for more than 6 months, but you must pass a federal ID check." But again, well, you know what, Tina? I would agree with that. But down this way, it's easier than it ever was. I mean, they do call in and do some kind of a background check on you, but you can literally, if you've got a couple of hours, you can literally walk into a store that sells guns, handguns, buy one, or at least begin the purchase of one, and get your paperwork back from whoever they send that to, the State Bureau of Investigation or the FBI, and you're on your way within, you can be on your way within an hour. Now, the first handgun I ever bought in the state of Tennessee, I was about 25 years old, and I had to wait 2 weeks on it because there was a 2-week waiting period. And that was, some people call that a cooling down period. Some people call that it was mostly, I think, just that was before we had computer databases to run people through. But, it was, and I do know in something like California, I don't know how easy it is to get a legal gun out there, and maybe impossible for certain things, but it's not like people don't have them. And you're right. If they want, it might take a while, but all they got to do is get. And I don't know how they're ever going to tighten down on this, but in this state, I can buy a gun, go through all the paperwork, but I can sell it to my next door neighbor, and I don't have to do a thing. That's a personal sale between two individuals, and it don't go on the books. It just kind of disappears, and he could sell it 10 times. And nobody knows where it is. So I don't, and that was one of the problems they had with the Columbine shootings. That's sort of how those kids got their guns. And yes, they can lie on the questionnaire, and that's very easy to do, even when you're being checked, unless they really do a background check. I'm sorry, but I have a hard time not throwing the guy off the bus while it's moving. Yeah, I know. And that's where I have to, that's me, Garrett. And then that's where I have to deal with both sides of my personality, I suspect. I got what you meant. Doug says, "I'm kind of biased. I had an older brother shot and killed in front of my nephew when I was in college. The man was out of jail in less than 5 years." Jesus, Doug. Well, of course, we didn't know that. I'm really sorry to hear that. He was your older brother, I assume, Doug? And you said, not your nephew's older brother. It wasn't the gun that killed him. He should have spent more than 5 years in prison. Absolutely. I absolutely do agree with that. Well, Tina, I don't doubt that. I mean, I've always heard New York was much harder to get legally obtain a gun, but you can do it. Now, I don't know about the city, but outside in the state. But, if it takes longer, and I don't know that I find anything wrong with that. I mean, some people are going to argue, "Oh, you shouldn't have to wait that long. It shouldn't take 6 months." But, if they're not just sitting in a box somewhere for 6 months and not being looked at, that's one thing. But if they are taking that time to check somebody, and it gives them a time period in case they're planning to do evil, it gives them a time to rethink or cool down, then I think that's worth it. Like I said, we used to have to wait at least 2 weeks. And now it doesn't take that long. It says Garrett, oh, wait a minute. What story is this? There was more of the story was in the middle of the night and almost everyone was sleeping. Oh, on the bus. Okay. Gee, I can't. That is horrific. No two ways around that. And Doug says, "I think you should have got the death penalty. Well, that's a good topic for discussion one night too, maybe. Background checks after I meant. Oh no! No, wait a minute. Where was that? I lost somebody's comment. Oh, here it is. Background checks can be immediate now with APHIS. And I don't understand, and Tina, maybe you can help me understand this, but I don't, as a law-abiding gun owner, I don't understand why the NRA and other people are so adamantly against background checks. Universal background checks, if done properly, could at least be a way to catch some of this before it happens. But they refuse to even agree to that. I mean, they've been doing that to me since I first bought a gun. And Lord knows I've had my background checked done many times for employment records. I worked on the airport. You had to be cleared to work on an international airport. And if you work for a federal agency, I promise you're getting background checking you. So, I mean, I don't understand. That's the one I still have trouble agreeing with them on. Oh, no, I meant after the fact when they found out he did it. And Doug, I really hate that. Well, Tina, I'll be honest with you. I'm not soft on capital punishment, but I'm conflicted about it. I mean, I'm not 100% sure I'm not 100% sure I agree with it. I do understand it, and I do understand why somebody would feel that way. So I can't say, and I'll be honest with you, if somebody came up and raped and killed my daughter, I'd probably shoot them dead. So, if I got the death penalty for that, so be it. Or if I executed them in essence, because I'd be really hard pushed not to do that. So that's where I'm really conflicted in that. And Hitchhiking Bones, welcome in, Don. How's the weather in the Lone Star State? I'm not a fan of capital punishment, but why in the world are they letting murders go after a few years? Jail overcrowding. We need to get rid of some of those. We do need to get rid of some. We need to empty out some of those people in jail that are locked up just because they had more than an ounce of marijuana or something. I mean, if it's overcrowding, then we got to figure out a way to work on that. These are tough questions. Mike says, I would like an NRA t-shirt. Can somebody send me a 2XL? What would you like for it to say, Mike? I can get you one. In Pennsylvania, they do the background check on me when I bought my gun and do a background check every time I renew my gun permit. Yeah, that's probably how. And when you say a gun permit, Doug, are you referring to a handgun permit, a carry permit, or are you just talking about a permit to own one? And I don't know how Pennsylvania works in that regard. I thought they already do background checks. They don't do them everywhere, Don. And some states seem to do them a lot quicker than other states. I don't know. Tim, you have to agree to only use it for entertainment, i.e. target practice. Tim, but you have to agree to only use it for entertainment. That was shut down by the SCOTUS. But our governor said, I don't care, I'm not abiding by it. Was that in New York? Tina, is that what you're saying? Again, I need to be more familiar with the state law up there. In fact, I just ordered a book that's supposed to help me understand that better. Maybe it will. because I really do want to know how other states are handling this stuff. So I'm going to try to read up on it. You know, I read something interesting. I don't know if this is what you're saying, Tina. It might be. I read something interesting about that. There are states where you can't, where that is true, that you can only use that as the, how did they put that? There is no carry, there is no legal carry. So you can only have guns for target shooting or home defense inside your home. And maybe that's what you're talking about, that they do it that way. And I did read something about that today. Again, I'm trying to do homework. I'm trying to research some of this to see how states are doing it. I have a cap for you. I probably got a cap somewhere around the house too. I'll be honest with you. I left the NRA. I was in the NRA for years. I've said this before, I'm sure, but I was certified instructor in handguns, shotguns, long guns, safety courses. I went through a whole lot of training because I believed in that aspect of the NRA. And then Columbine happened and they acted like it. I don't know. They really made me mad at the time. I'm not going to go into that whole story, but before that was all said and done, I just got out. NRA doesn't disagree with federal background checks. They're against added background checks in addition to the federal one already in place. Well, I'll have to read that, Tina, and see exactly what they're looking for there, because when I was involved in NRA, that's was one and the same thing. But I'd like to read that and Tina, rather than say you're wrong, I'm right, or vice versa. I'd like to read up on that some more and see exactly. All I know is every time it comes up, they're against it. And like I said, I thought we'd been doing it for a long time. Some states do it, some states don't. So I don't know how all states are doing it right now, but I know in this state it's not hard. Again, if you're a breaker of the law, then you can't get it. And that's where and that's something we need to fix, either by fingerprints. Did they check my fingerprints? That's a good question. I don't remember if they did or not. My fingerprints are on file with the federal government. I'm sure I gave them enough. That's an interesting thought, Tina. I'll have to look into that. You'd think even if you lied on the forms, if your fingerprints were matched up with someone who could not legally buy a firearm, then you'd think that would kick it out. So I don't know if they're doing that or not. Maybe, I don't know, maybe that's a way we could talk about this in a broader sense of how do we control some of these gun issues if we can't stop them. Maybe if we did something like that, maybe if we actually checked the thumbprint, maybe that would help. I used to have this cap from a rifle company that used to say, Nowitzki stopped jihad on contact. I don't know if I've ever seen that or not, Garrett. I have to think about that. No offense to anyone who is jihad here. Well, anybody can go on a jihad. It's just a word. It's most often used with the Muslim Arabic world, but even I can go on a jihad. It's a holy war, basically. Concealed carry okay. Well, mine does too. I don't have to have mine done. Well, actually, I don't have to have one at all here now, but I don't remember how often I have to renew it. I've got to look at mine to see. Yes, they do, Tim. Background checks are done everywhere. The federal background check. Okay, well, good. That's one way. So that's not stopping enough either, but obviously, in New York State, if I steal your scooter, what's Mike saying? Doug, if I steal your scooter, don't shoot me. I don't carry in Disney, Mike. I'm not even sure what would be a more extensive check even help. Most people who do this stuff don't have a history of this kind of violence, do they? Some do. Some do, and that's the thing. There's a case in point. The federal government, I think it was the Air Force, just had to pay retribution to a group in what state was it, Texas or Virginia, somewhere where a guy went in and shot up a bunch of. No, it was in the South, Alabama. I don't know. Anyway, he went into a church and killed a bunch of people. And what they found out was if all the things he had done had been put on his record, he would not have been allowed to buy a gun. But the military didn't put them on there because they had some excuse for not doing that. And in the end, so his record looked clean when he got out of the Air Force. He may have even been dishonorably discharged. And anyway, it was for spouse abuse or domestic abuse. And if that had been on his record, he wouldn't have been sold the gun in that state. And yet it wasn't on his record because the Air Force chose not to put it there. And now the Air Force is having to pay that. Not that that's compensation for the loved ones they lost in the shoot. But so that is a good point. Let's see. Tina says we can't even say it's for home and hearth. Some states have the right to defend called the right to stand and defend. Yes, that's true, Tina, but I thought your basic right to defend yourself inside your own home was universal. Now, what they did with that if you shot somebody might be handled differently, but the thing I just read today or yesterday said that inside your own home, that is still law of the land, as long as you're not outside your home. But I stand corrected if I'm wrong. I'd like to look that up and see. And I'll work on that. I got a book coming. Maybe it'll tell me. As if you can't flee. Now, I did read about some places that said you have to try to flee, which is horse shit, pardon my language. You can't always flee, and that shouldn't be the call. Yes, you're fingerprinted. Like Diana said, it won't stop mass shootings. These people. No, well, yeah. I don't think I got fingerprinted, Tina. I really don't. The last time I got something, I swear I don't remember if they fingerprinted me. I'll have to think about that. They probably did fingerprint me when I got my carry permit. I don't know. Does anybody want to hang around? Are we about done here? Tina, you can't use a gun. Diana says, we can't use a gun in our home at all, not for any reason. If I shoot the criminal for beating or raping me, I go to jail. That's, as Joe Biden says, Diana, that is definitely malarkey there. I couldn't. That's wrong in way too many ways. That's why we have the Second Amendment. People don't pay attention to how many lives are saved because a good guy had a gun. Not disagreeing with you, Tina. I'm just saying that's not always. The good guys aren't always around to do that, even if they've got the gun. Some good guys don't know how to shoot. Some good guys haven't had any training. I mean, as long as those things are done, then I'm okay with that. In some states, I mean, you go to Wyoming, and literally everybody carries. I mean, not everybody. That's hyperbole, but everybody can or has, and a lot of people do. Texas has a lot of carry, and they have totally different way of looking at that. Well, I know, like I said, I do have a permit, and I once told somebody I wasn't going to be the only liberal that got. I wasn't going to be somebody considered liberal that got shot because he was afraid to carry a gun for protection. And I still kind of feel that way. Flee, what if they shoot you in the back while you're fleeing? That's a good point, Carol. Yeah, Tina, Diana, that'd be a tough one to take. I just don't know. Carol said, Diane, that's crazy. I don't like guns, but you should be able to defend yourself. I think that's every human's right is to defend themselves. It should be anyway, especially in their own home. Tim, you may not recognize it. There's no ink. Yeah, I know. They just do it on a piece of glass now. I mean, I've had mine done that way a few times. I just couldn't remember if they did it. They may have, and I may have just forgotten. And you're right, they don't do it with ink, so maybe that's why it wouldn't stood out. But the last couple of times I had them done for at TVA, they did them on the glass thing. You didn't get ink anymore. I hated that ink. It was hard to come off. More people's lives are saved by gun ownership daily than a number of people killed by them. Oh God, I can't. I gotta tell you what, guys. I gotta start shutting this down. This is a good discussion. I'd be glad to continue it. It's 9:30. I would continue it, but I need to go up and check on Brenda and probably fix her something to eat. And I need to actually eat something myself. I've not had anything to eat since this morning. I had a banana at about 9 o'clock, so I'm getting a little hungry too. And that's a good point, Shelley. I mean, I believe that too, but you know, what about the argument that guns get taken away from gun owners and then shot, they're killed by their own guns? See, I never have believed that. That gets spouted a lot by people who want to get rid of everything, and I never have believed that, but I don't know the numbers on that. And that's one I need to look up too. So if you know about, please, by all means, put it in here, send it to me. And don't leave, Shelley. You're not yet. I mean, hang around for a minute. I'm going to say bye. But I do need to go. I've got to go take care of Brenda. So let's, yeah, that's what we need to do, Garrett. We all do need to get back to caring for each other, even if we have different opinions. And see you Saturday, Mike. And maybe or maybe not come on if you feel like it. That's up to you. You don't have to by any means. We'll make fun of Mark. I got a really great picture to show. And you know, I'm going to say this. You may or may not agree, but I think it shouldn't matter what we believe. I don't think it should matter what religion we are, what race we are, or what state we come from. But if we don't learn to get along together, we're in trouble. Get away from automatic distrust. Not saying there aren't bad people. I heard Carol would like to come on with us. Oh, I'd love to get her on here, Mike. If you can talk her into that, I would. I would send her a gold engraved invitation. If you believe that, you need to check in my bank account. But I still say a couple resource officers with guns would save a lot of people. I don't disagree, Tina. If they're properly trained, I have to believe that whatever they had at Uvalde, for example, wasn't really a good resource officer. Now, schools here generally have two if they have them. And right now, I don't know what the status of resource officers are in the state of Tennessee. For a while, there was always a couple at every school, but I don't know right now. Okay, guys, I do need to go take care of my spousal unit. And I'll tell her you guys all wished her well. And hopefully she'll be back up and around Saturday and maybe be on and talk. And people with reprobate minds are too hard to hug. Just saying. Well, that's a kind of a good point, Shelley. So anyway, thanks for everybody coming in. Shelley, Kelly, Don, whoever's still in here. Really appreciate you coming in, Tony, and Doug. I really appreciate you guys coming in and getting involved in this discussion. That's what I'm trying to do here is talk, get people to talk. Well, they did, Tina, at some point, but I mean, it started out with one guy there, I think, or maybe two. But yeah, you're right. They had a whole bunch of them standing out in the hall, and that's a different question altogether. You're welcome, Diane, and thank you for being here and participating. I really appreciate it. It means a lot. And maybe, who knows, maybe someday this little group can come up with an idea that people actually would agree on. And, that's wishful thinking, I realize. But, let's think a little pixie dust on it. And before I forget, what I was going to talk about Mickey Mouse, how many people know that the rights for Mickey Mouse are about to expire? And Mickey Mouse could become public property, and anybody could use Mickey Mouse for anything. And if what I saw last night was correct, well, what's about to happen first is the original Mickey Mouse, black and white, Steamboat Willie. That essence of Mickey Mouse is expiring this year, and they got to figure. I don't know what Disney's going to do about these things, but if they don't do something to hold on to that copyright or whatever it is that they have on a character like that, they're going to lose it. And that's would apply to any character at any theme park anywhere after a certain amount of years. And I think the time limit is like 95 years. New stuff I just learned a couple of days ago, and I'll look up details for it. Maybe I'll talk about it a little bit Saturday, but look it up. It's really a true thing, and hopefully they'll be able to fix that. I'd really hate to see Mickey Mouse, selling condoms or something. What is that, Ted? I thought Teddy was snoring. It's a helicopter. All right, guys. Thank you all. And I really appreciate you being here. Love you all. See you again next week, I hope. And see some of you Saturday. Everybody have a good night. Thank you. If you got any questions or anything, send them to me. DM me, email me.